alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, author of a bunch of stuff. But anyway, with me today is a new guest of the show and a new author with a debut novel to talk about, Pat Daly. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. I mean, honestly, and you got quite the radio voice. I'm kind of impressed already by your setup and all that. For someone who doesn't have a podcast of their own, it seems a little bit, maybe a little excessive, but hey, there you go. So, Pat, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and the sort of stuff you write.
Okay. Real brief background. I was an Air Force test pilot for a bunch of years. I left there. I went to work for NASA for quite a while, actually as a Honeywell employee. And then I left that, started my own business, eventually sold that, and finally lived my dream of writing a novel. So I've written my first novel and pretty excited about it.
Oh, NASA, huh? That's cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, not all the other stuff's nice, but NASA, that was funny because I noticed in your bio you worked in NASA down in Houston. And I know another author actually who used to work there, who used to work for NASA in Houston.
Okay, who's that?
Terry Mixon. He still lives in the area though, I think. So you may not have, and he got started writing while he was working there, I think. Mm-hmm. He's one of the hosts of the Dead Robot Society podcast and has been. That's one of my favorite shows. Has been for a long time.
Oh, anyway, I'm gonna have to check that out then.
Yeah, he writes space opera, like military space opera, and a bunch of other fun stuff. But anyway, he's cool. He's been on the show a few times, so I just couldn't help but twig to the similarity there. Anyway, So Pat, what's your book about?
Okay, the book is a near future sci-fi. It's about augmented reality in a Disney World scale theme park. Because I love VR games. I love the concept, but VR is pretty limiting in terms of, you end up stepping on your cat or knocking your TV off the stand and nobody's happy with you. So, augmented reality, I think, is more promising from that perspective in that, you get the blend of the virtual over the real. So if you see a wall, it's a wall and you're not going to intuitively run into it. So, so it's got a kind of a gamelit feel, a little bit of a Ready Player One feel to it as well. Near future, augmented reality, good versus evil. Boy meets girl.
Okay,
a lot of gaming stuff as well.
Nice. Is it kind of the young adult type focus, or is it more?
It does.
In the middle there.
When I set out to write it, I wanted it to be family friendly because I got kids, and I maybe it's just my inherent shyness. I didn't want them to pick up anything I'd written one day and go, "Oh my God, Dad! How could you write this explicit sex scene?"
Oh, that's already going to be a problem for me if I ever, if I ever have kids, that's going to be a real issue, I think.
Yeah. Well, hey, but you're already out there in the world of literature, so it's established, and maybe it'll work out better.
I suppose if I have kids, I'll be like 50 by the time they're old enough to care about what I write at all. So that's if I had them today, which is not likely to happen. But anyway, this. So never mind that. But it sounds actually a little bit kind of like a game like Jurassic Park too. When you mentioned the amusement park thing, is that kind of how it goes to some extent? I mean, is it about perils of this technology, or is that more just a backdrop? Or
no, it's more just a backdrop. The peril in it comes from there's a couple of disruptive technologies in the book. And the peril comes from that disruption and people wanting to steal the tech and co-opt the tech. So that's where the bad guys come into play. They're after the tech, but it's not perilous tech in and of itself.
Okay, so it's more optimistic, maybe even in that sense. Yeah, in a lot of futures we see in fiction.
Yeah, and the AI in the book is a good AI. So it's more like Orson Scott Card's Jane than it is like Skynet.
Oh yeah, I was also going to think as well. Now I'm going to think of some AIs in my own work. You mentioned Warrior Online while we were off the air, and there's some of those AIs aren't all that nice either. But I don't think you've gotten far enough to meet them.
No. So far, I'm just reading the free stuff.
Oh yeah,
but I'm already hooked enough that I'm going to have to, cough up some coin here.
Yeah, pony up those deeper. Tokens.
Yeah,
we always like to hear that, fellow authors out there. But anyway. Yeah, so, anyway, I sorry for derailing that. I do think it's interesting, because optimism doesn't come naturally to me, I guess, when it comes to technology, but I also don't write much stuff that's near future, because predicting things is so difficult. How do you find that to be the case? I think prediction is one of the more like, okay, people can tell when you get it wrong when you predict near future stuff, right?
Yeah. And that's, there's two edges to that whole near future sword, and one is, you get it completely wrong and goon it up, and people go, "What a moron!" Mm-hmm. And the other is that reality overtakes your book, and it's no longer near future; it's recent past or far distant past. So I've tried to be cautious in what I'm predicting, trying to extrapolate things that I think are reasonably possible with a little bit of, wishonium and unobtainium thrown in there just to push the tech to where I want it to be.
Cool. I wishonium, I haven't heard that one before. But that's really neat. I mean, I really like the far-flung stuff, but even then, some of that can be predictive too. I mean, even like Ender's Game was one of my favorite books as a teenager. So since you mentioned Card, I couldn't help but think that and there was another series he did. I forget what it was called. I didn't actually read that one, but apparently it kind of predicted the streaming craze to some extent, a little bit.
Oh, I've read so much of it.
Well, I think it was the Worthing Saga. Was the one where it's like where they would basically live stream psychic like space battles and stuff. Like I haven't read that one, but my brother told me about it. I'm like, well, that's crazy. That's like did he write that in like the 80s or the 90s? Like it's wow. Okay, so and Ender's Game of course has some very obvious predictive elements that came pretty close to being important to being real factors in the real world at this point with the internet and stuff. Of course, the aliens, not so much, but hey, we can always hope. Or not hope in the case. Those were pretty nasty aliens, and those battles were pretty brutal.
yeah, not hope in the case of Ender's Game. Maybe E.T., that's a little more hopeful in terms of aliens.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, hoping for aliens always seems like a weird thing to... But, that's one of those surreal elements of, what if we actually met them? And what if we met aliens? It's like, okay, I don't even want to go down that road. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's like, that's a whole can of worms right there.
Yeah. And one of the things that I think about when people write evil aliens or conquering aliens, I always think that is a lot of money to spend to go a very, very long way just to pick a fight.
Right. Yeah, like Independence Day, that kind of thing. Like, come on, why'd you come all the way here? That's ridiculous. There's all these other places you could have stopped and had a good time. I guess, but no, they're rapacious evil aliens that just want to kill and eat everyone or whatever. Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. That's a trope. I mean, I guess I played with it a little bit, but that wasn't in an Earth universe. It was in Earth. It was in my Pillar universe. I had an alien. There's an alien element there. In was it Origin of Storms is the name of the book now. It's had a few titles. It's composed of a few novellas, so it's confusing, but. That one is it's like a first contact story in a setting that doesn't have Earth in it. But yeah, anyway.
Okay.
And doesn't have planets or stars in it either. It's a very weird universe.
Oh.
It's all speculative physics. Yeah. All the physics is made up basically because it's a different, it's an alternate universe. Law-wise. But anyway, I'm sorry. That I'm just going off on my own stuff. I don't know why. It's just the unusual recording time. Anyway. So Pat, you've got this this approach. Who's your main character in your book? I guess. I mean, do you have approaches from a young adult character or someone else?
I do. I've got a male lead and a female lead, and the universe itself is post Korean War #2, and so in that world. The warfare got a little biochemical as well, and so you see vets with horrible scarring from that, and the main character ends up an orphan because his father is dual citizen, Korean American, and he dies in that war, and then his mom dies when he's around 13. So he ends up, ward of the state in the system at age 13. And then there's a, precipitating event where he ends up having to flee foster care. And he sets his sight on the place he last remembered being happy. And that was this Solar Prime augmented reality park that he went to when he was 10 with his parents, because they were big gamers as well. And then it's all about his journey there and then what he discovers when he gets there.
Wow.
So that's
okay.
That's the male lead. And the female lead is also an orphan, but she is orphaned through a terrorist attack on Mall of America. And so both her parents were killed in that. And she goes for similar reasons, although she's got extended family at home. She's just a hardcore gamer at heart, and she got into mixed martial arts and wants to do it full time. So anyway, they end up hooking up. Not much love between them at first. It was far more butting heads than holding hands, but they end up taking us through the story.
Cool. I that sounds like a really, especially both characters. It does sound like it could be a very poignant setup. There's a lot of emotional torque there, and that's interesting. Did you find writing any of that difficult, or is that, or was it just, because there's a lot of just intrinsic conflict and real world kind of type problems woven in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, I had more writing her perspective. Than I did about the real world aspects of it. Although I ended up doing a bunch of research in terms of foster care and child protection services and things like that. But I discovered early on that I needed to consult my in-house experts in terms of writing this female character, because I didn't want to just write a guy's perspective of a girl.
Right.
I wanted to make it a little more authentic. I wanted to understand her motivation and thoughts a little bit more. So both my daughters came into play and helped me out there, and my wife, and my critique groups as well.
Cool. So you use critique groups. Interesting. What kind of critique group setup did you have here?
Well, I'm a member of a thing called Houston Writers Guild, and found it late after I'd already completed the manuscript for Spark. And one of their requirements is if you have a completed manuscript, then that qualifies you for a tier 2 group. And that's people that have completed manuscripts. But in order to be in a tier 2 group, you need to be also in a tier 1 group, where you're reading people's raw stuff. It's the stuff that literally they have written that week, and they bring it to the group and we talk about it. And it's kind of a mixed bag.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was an English major, and I had to do some writing groups in college and stuff, and it is strange to read people who's especially in college, was like they're there to fulfill a requirement. And so even in the creative writing courses, where the people, like, there's people in there that never really wanted to write anything or never thought about it very much. And so what they come up with is interesting. It's kind of strange, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the groups I've been in, in these groups, everybody wants to write. Everybody thinks they're a writer. Some of them are functionally illiterate. And and get offended when you try to explain the difference between there, and there, or past P-A-S-T and past P-A-S-S-E-D, and they want to argue about it. And it's like, sorry, dude, I don't have that much time in my life to get into a fight with you about the language. So on the other hand, some of them are great. Some of the best feedback I've ever gotten has been from members of my Tier 1 writing group.
Wow. Okay. So it's interesting. I had no idea there was something like that in Houston or anywhere really, where there was kind of an official or semi-official group where they get people. There must be a lot of writers in the area, but I guess it's a big area, big city.
Yeah, big city. So I think that's one of the benefits of that.
Yeah. I mean, I might be near the Mall of America, but I'm nowhere near the city. Let me put it that way. In real life, I mean, like, I don't live. When you said the Mall of America, like, yeah, I guess. I live in the same state, but that's about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, I think. I've had a mixed experience with writing groups myself, but mostly they've all been online, and I imagine this was in person or is in person.
Yeah, actually, the Tier 1 group was online, and that was the thing I really liked about it, because everybody's busy, and it was asynchronous, so that you could submit your pages, and then people would give you feedback. And the rule was you have to submit by Thursday, and you have to give everybody feedback by Sunday night.
Okay.
So that worked out well. And then the Tier 2 group, except during COVID, that has always been in person, and they've become some of my dearest friends on the planet. They're people that we rip apart each other's stories, but at the end of the day, it's all, we'll hug it out, and because everybody's motivated by wanting your work to be better. Right.
Yeah, and most of my writing groups have been good like that. One of them in particular, the last one I was in that was a critique group, was particularly bad though, and that's why I've not been back to one of those in a while. It was very much a negative experience, that one, but hey, it happens. Yeah, you can't always, and honestly, the drama just wasn't worth it. So it's been a while now, and I don't need to go into it further.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And sometimes it feels like people have joined these groups because they don't have any other friends. It's like they're just looking for a place that it's like Wally and Dilbert. They pretend to be choking, so somebody will give them the Heimlich, and they'll spin around and get a hug out of it.
Jeez, I forgot about that. But yeah, so when you approach writing on your writing, though, mostly most of the actual process is mostly solitary. Would you agree with that? So when you approach the page, you got any tricks or techniques to use to lower your inhibitions? Because also you mentioned how you wanted the story to be family friendly. And that's the kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. Does that clash at all with just cutting loose and doing what you need to do?
It does, and you must have felt the same thing too, because it's a very revealing thing to write. You're at times pouring your heart and soul out onto a page, and there's always that, oh God, do I really want to share this with anybody? Because I think most people know that a lot of writing ends up being autobiographical to at least a certain extent.
Yeah.
And so, some of your characters end up being a lot like how you see yourself. And that can be kind of inhibiting to put that out there. And I found that, at least initially, I did my best writing when I did it in the evening after a glass of wine, because it just helped lower that level of inhibition a little bit, and the words seem to come easier. And now that I'm doing it more, it seems to be that actually I've flipped on that. I like to do it in the morning when I'm fresh and before everybody else is up.
That's interesting. When I started out, I was writing. I was in school. It was in high school or middle school, I guess. And so I started writing at 4:30 in the morning every day before school.
Yeah, and you probably didn't have a glass of wine before, did you?
No, I didn't. I not only was that not legal, I also didn't. I never liked wine very much, and I had got my fair taste of it because I was raised Catholic. But anyway, the approach though it's very much changed right now. I feel like I don't know when my best time is, and it's been tricky.
When do you try to do it?
I try pretty much all day. Yeah, I pretty much try all day. I try. I mean, a lot of the time. It's been trying in the morning for a long time now, but generally, and this is kind of a weird, maybe too much in the weeds here. But one of the things is I've started dictating again. I dictate my fiction now, and I mean, I'm not exclusively doing either. I love typing. I love typing the story, but sometimes I need to dictate just to clear the cobwebs and get a lot of words down fast. And I can't do that first thing in the morning, or really any time in the morning, because there's nowhere to do it, for one thing, because I got housemates and stuff, and they're, I'm a loud talker in the first place. So but the other issue is that my mouth is super dry first thing in the morning because I have a CPAP machine. So I wake up in the morning and my mouth, I'm just dried out. It takes a while to recover from that. But it is challenging, and I mean, because I was always a morning writer, for about 15 years, and now I'm like, I don't know when I'm supposed to do it.
Yeah. That's interesting. To see how that evolves with us as we age and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
One of the other things I do, and I don't remember who said this initially or who was alleged to have done this, but the story was that maybe it was Hemingway that they always stopped in the middle of a scene.
Yeah, I don't know who that was, but it sounds familiar. Yeah. Yeah,
where they knew where the next few pages at least were going to go, so that when they sat down to write again, they could immediately start.
Yeah. And that's a really powerful tool. It's funny actually. Maybe I should try that, because I've not done that in forever. What I've done is try to finish the chapter or finish the scene, and it's tough to do because, well, it's also tough to do so little in some sense. I'm not saying because you could write any amount and end in the middle, right? That's fine. But I discover what I'm doing when I'm writing. I discover it, and I discover it pretty fast, because when I'm dictating, I go 6,000 words an hour or something like that. So,
oh my gosh!
Yeah, I mean, I talk pretty fast when I'm dictating, and so it's kind of hard to tell where it's going to end up by the end of that hour where I dictate 2 or 3 chapters.
Yeah, I have never tried that dictation technique. What do you use as far as, if you don't mind my asking, what do you use as far as a gear or an app or? I dictated to a little Sony. I guess it's I mean, I don't need, not sponsored or anything, but this is a really nice voice recorder dealy, and I dictated to that while I'm walking around, so I'm not in front of the computer at all. And then I plug that. It has a USB port, a USB plug that just pops out of the bottom, and you can plug it right into the computer. So I load the MP3 over, then transcribe it with Dragon, naturally speaking, which is fairly expensive software if you want to get the transcription feature, but there's lots of other ways you can get the transcription feature. I think Otter.ai or .io, I always forget which one that is. It's a fairly cheap way to do it, and they have a free trial. So that's a better idea for a lot of people. But I can't look at. I think the biggest weakness I have is that when I look at the text forming in front of me, it actually hurts my ability to write more. I get so maybe intimidated by watching words appear that I'm like, I can't do it. Okay. So that's why, if I dictate into the computer, which I could do, it's not any faster than typing, which is 2,000 words an hour at most. Yeah.
But I can go 3 times faster than that if I just don't. If I have no notes, no computer, nothing, I just go.
Now, how accurate is the transcription?
Oh, it's pretty accurate. I mean, and you have to say period and comma and whatever stuff like that as well. You just say that, and it puts the punctuation in.
Okay.
Open quote, close quote's my least favorite. So sometimes I miss those, but then I can put them in later. And then I do all. Of course, I don't do the editing with dictation. I think that'd be really difficult. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and editing it does take a while. That's so full disclosure. When you do that, and it's been a while since I've been on the dictation hobby horse, because I hadn't been dictating for about a year. I did about a year and a half, 2 years, where I mostly dictated, and then I took a year off to write novels or just type them because, You know, I wanted to see what it was like, and it turns out it's not very fast. I didn't go back and even though I can type really fast, I can only do that if I'm not looking at the screen, which is a confusing conundrum.
Yeah.
Like, I type a lot faster now than I used to. I can come up with a story. I could probably do 3,000 or 4,000 words an hour, but only if I'm not paying attention to the little marks appearing in front of me. That's always the limiting factor, and hard not to when you're typing on a computer. Anyway, it's an interesting problem to have. But again, the editing, to make I need to put a lot of work in to make it sound like me after the fact, because it doesn't sound like my writing voice, my typing voice at all. The way I talk is not how I type. In other words.
Yep, I get it.
Yeah. So anyway, Pat, it's we still have some time. Well, no, we're actually running a little low, but I want to ask you a couple other things about your book, because it's called Spark, right?
Right, Spark.
Spark, yeah. So Spark it sounds really interesting, and I've got to say, juggling the darkness with the I assume some fun elements, because honestly, that's one thing I'm always very curious about now is, what do you think's fun about your book? I'm just curious, because I don't think I need to explain further, really. But yeah, what's fun? What's the fun stuff in your book?
I think the fun stuff is the game park itself, because Spark is an acronym. It stands for Solar Prime Augmented Reality Park, and Solar Prime is a derivative of. I used to live in Southern California, and there was a place called Solar One, kind of halfway between Barstow and LA, which was consolidating solar power plant. It's a huge circular array of mirrors beaming up reflected sunlight onto a tower. And I mean, you could see this thing from 200 miles away. Wow. And so I was always fascinated by that technology. So that's where the Solar Prime came from. And then the quests in the park itself, there are 7 major quests. And then there's a bunch of little side quests that you do along the way, and every it's kind of laid out like a wagon wheel. And so every spoke of the wheel has a theme that leads to that major quest, that anchor quest. And so, themes running through there, and then our hero discovers that, or begins to suspect, that there is more to Spark than what is visible to the public. And so as he's playing the games, playing the quests, he's also learning, about himself, about the park. And I think that part of it is really fun. And I think the romance that eventually buds out between the male and female leads is pretty fun as well.
Awesome. It sounds like a good time, honestly. I guess it's one of the things I've lost sight of too often when I've been writing my books is, like, what's fun about this? Sometimes I lose the thread, and I think it's important for authors to keep focused on it, which is why I might be asking that question to everybody now. Honestly, what's fun about because honestly, the reward can't just be a twist ending or a beautiful sentence here and there. It's got to be an engaging, fun experience, at least for me. I mean, entertainment's really important. I know some people write not as much for entertainment, but for fiction, I think it's pretty important.
Oh, I agree with you completely. I mean, there are books I pick up, and if at the end of chapter 4 or 5, it's been, a 20,000 word suckfest of agony and pain, and then I'm probably not going to finish it, because there's enough of that in life. So, I want something that's going to pick me up a little bit as well.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, that's a good note to go out on. But Pat Daly, good having you on the show. Where can people find your work? And remind people what it's called.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me, Tim. The work is called Spark, Spark. And you can find me, probably the best place right now is my blog, which is feraldaughters, with an S, .wordpress.com. I'm also on, most of the socials. Instagram, I'm Pat Daly Pics. Twitter, I'm at Pat Daly Author, and Facebook, I'm Pat Daly Author. I am just standing up my website, because apparently Pat Daly Author was already taken, and patdaily.com was taken. I'm now thepatdaily.com
Okay.
for the website, but it is still in its infancy. I mean, I think I've got a title page, and that's about it.
Well, I'll leave at least a couple links in the show notes for your blog and so on. I haven't blogged enough lately. I got still dwellerthedeep.wordpress.com is my blog. It's so silly.
Yeah.
It's a really old blog. It's my first blog, and it's still there. And I do update it every now and then. People are getting updates. It's actually like I have enough followers on there that it'd be worth keeping them in the loop. But yeah. I always forget about them. It's a shame. And as for this podcast, you can find us at mentalcellarpublications.com, and you can find all my books on timniederreiter.com/books. Thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks again, Pat Daly. It's been awesome talking to you. Have a good one, folks. I'll talk to you again next week. Bye-bye.